Welcome to your next step up the self-publishing mountain.
I'm Matilda Swift, author of quintessentially British cozy mysteries.
And I'm Samantha Cummings, author of young adult books about magic, myths and monsters.
I've written the books,
Changed their covers,
tweaked their blurbs,
tried tools from a dozen ads courses.
and I'm still not seeing success.
Now, we're working together to plot and plan our way from barely making ends meet to pulling in a living wage.
Join us on our journey where we'll be mastering the pen to snag that paycheck.
Hello, and welcome to Pen to Paycheck Authors Podcast. I'm Sam Cummings, here with my co-host Matilda Swift, and we're here to write our way to financial success. We're two indie authors with over a dozen books between us and still a long way to go towards the quit the day job dream. If that sounds familiar, listen along for our mastery through missteps journey. Each week we cover a topic to help along the way. This week's topic is going to be how authors use branding. But before that, let's do our wins and whinges of the week. Matilda, what is your win/whinge of the week?
I am going pure win this week because I have started writing again. So exciting. So I took a break originally for 6 weeks at the end of last year, and then it turned out to be a pointlessly short amount of time, like 6 weeks really, when you've got Christmas in the middle and you're trying to release a book and life happens. 6 weeks is actually not very long, and I had that thing where I realized that everything I wanted to look into had a deeper and deeper layer, so I decided to take off also January and February. So basically I had a full quarter off. It's been really nice, like really, really nice to just be able to focus on different things. I've picked up some new hobbies. I've, explored different relationships. I've had a chance to just catch up on different things, which has been lovely to take a break. And I do think I will take a break around Christmas every year because I think it's actually a pointless time because I'm so busy. I love Christmas, so I'm very intensively invested in it. I took a trip to Nuremberg to Christmas markets, which I'll be doing again this year. I'll be going to some Christmas markets. So yes, so break was fantastic. I had felt a bit worried that I would forget how to write. In fact, I would say I was quite worried about that. That I would take a break and just really, really feel incredibly rusty trying to get back to writing. And that I would, because the last time I had some sort of like real break to my process was the pandemic, and I had a break because I moved countries sort of unexpectedly, and it was a pandemic, and so when I went back to writing, it was rubbish, like genuinely bad writing. I felt uncomfortable doing it because I was not cozy and charming and fun. I was writing because I was writing almost like it was a job, and it is not a job for me at the moment, but I would like it to be, so I want to treat it professionally, so I was trying to keep going, but it felt unpleasant. So I was worried that after this kind of break of a quarter I would sit down to write again and feel rusty. And I know I've been thinking about this new series for a while, so I was hoping that thinking about it and planning things around it and reading things around it and having done some mindset work, I would hopefully feel good. But it felt really good to get back into writing. And I'd got so many ideas, and I found myself just constantly being like a little bit excited. And
that's nice.
The idea of like, oh, I'd forgotten this thing I wanted to put in. Let me go back and put that in. So yeah, it was really nice. And I think what was really interesting was that it really read like me, which I'm aware is weird that I would think it wouldn't. But I did to an extent think that, like, again, because like the books I wrote in the pandemic didn't really read like me. They read like somebody struggling to write, I guess. Or they were very authentic, and it was kind of nice to have that reminder of like my style. And I might, when I write the first 10,000 words of books, I write the first 10,000 words, take a few weeks break, and come back prepared to, if I need to, throw it all away and start again. It kind of just gives me a sense of like, what do I want to have in the first few pages? I often change the first couple of chapters quite significantly because I try and put too much in. But currently I'm in that stage where I think it's great. What I've written is great. I won't throw any of this away. It's all golden. But I probably will throw it all away, so which is fine, and it is for the better. Yeah.
You and I work so differently.
I think a big part of my process over the past few years has been becoming comfortable with throwing words away. And I would like a better phrase than throwing away. I'm not even sure. Maybe I don't, because I think it's fine to write words that you don't use in the end product. I think it always makes it better to get rid of words and rewrite. And I really love having books that I've started, I've kept the same opening all the way through all my edits, and then, at some point I have completely rewritten the first couple of chapters and be like, oh yeah, why was I hanging on to those chapters I knew didn't work? I should have just changed them. So I think that has been a big part of my writing journey, is like feeling comfortable rewriting stuff for the better. But yes, that is my big one this week, is feeling great about starting writing again. And I'm very excited. I've been looking at my butter list. I've been sort of doing fun recipe planning, and it is all feeling very exciting. How about you?
I have got 2 wins and 2 whinges. And I don't often whinge, but I'm going to. So I'm going to start with the whinges. Okay. I'm not feeling well. I feel like I'm on the cusp of a cold, and it was my fault. Mostly because I went to a wedding this weekend, and so saw loads of people. But then I thought to myself straight away, I haven't been ill for a while. Now, why would I do that? What was I thinking? So literally, I think it was Saturday morning, I thought, I was a bit tired because I'd been to a wedding, and I thought, wow, I feel a bit tired. It's really weird I've not been ill. And then obviously now I'm feeling like I'm getting ill. So
jinx yourself.
I'm whinging at myself for even saying that to the universe. My other whinge is that I'm kind of at a point in my writing. I'm writing 2 things at the moment, and both of them are coming to the end, and I'm really bad at writing endings. So my whinge is that I'm at the worst part. I'm terrible. I'm bored of my own everything. So then my whinge is out the way. My 2 wins. The first one is I finally got one of our episodes up on YouTube. So if you're listening to this and you like YouTube podcasts, they are slowly but surely going to be on there. I always have internet problems, so internet problems meant I could only do 1, and I'll get more up. And then finally, my last win is that I finished editing the book that I'm publishing at the end of this month. So now it's just a case of, I really need to email my formatter and do all of that stuff, but the edit's done. The book's finished.
Completely done.
I'm completely.
It can be published today.
I probably need to just do a quick spell check, because that's always. I always publish with at least 1 typo. Don't know how every time, but yeah, other than that, I'm happy. I'm happy with the story. Yeah, can't wait to publish.
Yeah, we have both touched there on our writing editing process. So I feel like we should do an episode at some point about that, because definitely we do it very differently, and I think it is useful to talk about how we have come to our processes. I'm not sure there is a right process. I really like hearing about people's processes, not because I think, oh, that's the right way to do it, just because I find it quite comforting to know that everybody else is also guessing and trying different things and has felt convinced they were right, they found the right process and then they realized it was terrible. It convinces me to keep trying new things.
Yeah, I love hearing what people do. I'm really happy with my processes. It's taken me a long time to kind of figure myself out, but I love hearing what other people do. It's so cute. I just think it's I don't know. I don't think it's really a personality type thing either. I think it's just fun to see how we all started at one point and we've all ended at another.
And I also think how you got there, because that's the hard thing for me, is trying new things, because it does feel a bit like lucky underwear. I'm just I can't change my process because then I won't be able to write the book. It's what kind of triggered you into trying new things, and that would hopefully maybe give people confidence to try something new with a different book.
Yes, I definitely have things to talk about in terms of that. So we'll pencil it in.
But today we are talking about how authors use branding. So what do you look at when you're exploring author branding?
I took to Google naturally and typed in Google, how do authors use branding?
Doing the expert
like,
hard-hitting research there.
Yeah, like really, like doing the Lord's work. No, I just looked up. I found a couple of websites which just kind of went through different authors and how they did branding and stuff. What I really focused on this week, which I didn't. There's kind of like two sides to it that I focused on, which I just kind of stumbled upon naturally and thought I'll go with it because it's what's interesting me. Which was the physical aspect of branding. So what people's books look like and what like standardization they go through. So I've got like loads of series from the same author, and also books from authors from different series and things. So I pulled loads of books from my shelves and looked at what their like standard covers looked like, whether there were any similarities, and like do they always put their titles and their names in the same placements on the covers, and then what order of things they put inside the books. Because to me that's something that I'm always trying to like figure out if I'm doing it right. Like when I'm getting my books formatted, like where do people put like their acknowledgements, where do people put their author bios? So it was like a bit of a, I feel like a bit of a weird way to look at author branding, but that was just something that had piqued my interest, so I delved into that a little bit. And then I also looked at, because I've been completing my author branding Bible, I was just kind of filling in some more of that this week and looking at things like my target audience and really trying to figure out like who it is, who I want to find my books and what I want them to see when they're looking at my books. So just like fun things like that. So I've looked at, let me have a look. I have done a color palette, obviously. So I did all that fun stuff of like typography and color palettes, because that's the fun part when you're thinking about branding. It's like logo, colors, typography.
I mean, interesting that is, I think, very fun to you. I'm sure lots of people would not like that. I find color palettes frustrating because I think I find it hard to look at it just in a small like swatches. And yeah, I like color, I like design, but I'm more of like a big picture person. So do you think that you are approaching it through the things you like?
Yes, like things that I visually like. So I use a couple of websites that help build color palettes. So you can kind of look through examples and stuff. I think I used an Adobe. I think my actual like color palette that I've got, I used an Adobe. Let me see what it was called. Color theme from Image. So what I did was uploaded some of my book covers and picked colors from my book covers to figure out what my vibe is, and then went from there. So that was like
have you got website to recommend on that side, on that front?
Yeah, so there's this one was color theme from Image by Adobe Color.
Is that something you need a subscription for?
I potentially, because I do have an Adobe account, so you may need to be logged in for it. I didn't look because it probably just, if you do it, I would have automatically been logged in. But I did use another website, which was actually really fun. Like you press the space bar and it toggled through loads of different color palettes, and you could lock in colors and then keep kind of shuffling. And I don't think I've still got that. It basically,
which I don't know if they have them in the US. I don't know. Seems very like English pub, a fruit machine.
Yeah, I
guess they have them in casinos, right? They have them in Vegas.
Yeah. So I don't know if I've still got this color thing up, but it was like generating palettes, so then you could lock in the colors you liked and move them around. So I'll have a look and I'll put it in the show notes because I'll be able to see it in my history. But there was like, if you're somebody like me who just likes to press buttons and see fun things happen, like so easily entertained, it was fun. I spent a good probably a good hour looking at different colors.
Time productively spent, I'm sure.
It made me feel good. I also looked into, I tried to just really delve into the voice that I want to use online, which for me as a young adult author, and somebody who reads young adult and still considers themselves a young adult. And I'm not. But in my
It's a
head, I'm
mindset.
a young adult. It's a
Yeah.
complete mindset. So I'm kind of happy with the way that I talk online anyway, but it's just nice to write down rules of conduct, the things that you'll talk about, the phrasing that you'll use, and the use of language. And I came up with 3 pillars of content. So like 3 specific things that I'm going to post about on social media, which means that my posts will always be consistent and I'm not just like randomly posting. It's so difficult to know what to post on social media, and it's now like one of the biggest parts that you like, the biggest aspects of your brand that you have. So trying to like narrow myself in to 3 particular things means that I won't have to try and guess what to post. I can just look at my 3 pillars and be like, okay, well, I haven't posted that for a while, so let's throw one of those out.
Yeah, that's definitely what I want to do with social media as well, is like really stop having to take the decision. Like I'm just full of decision fatigue with social media and I want to take that out of it. I recently wrote myself a list of like, here's everything that I could post about that is kind of brand related. And I did this maybe a couple of weeks ago. And then I realized it's nothing to do with my brand. It wasn't like I thought it was brand related. So I thought it was kind of like related to like a cozy mystery audience. And I realized maybe when we were looking at the podcast last week that I had left out anything that was like quintessentially British, which is what I want to make my brand. So I need to go and have a rethink. I had thought about it from a really, really broad, like, what can I post? I'm so desperate for ideas, rather than a brand.
No.
First.
Yes. So something that I read online on, let me see if I still got this open. It was a rocketexpansion.com /author-branding. This will go in. We may have already used this link. I'm not sure, but rocketexpansion.com /author-branding. And
okay, I'll add that.
It's not like they're not coming at it from a particularly like new point of view, but it's just they've listed everything really, really clearly. So like defining your target audience, and like one of their rules is, I'm pretty sure it was on their webpage, and now that I'm wondering whether I've just made this up, but it was don't go wide, go narrow. Effectively, figure out your target audience and go for them. Don't try and appeal to everybody. Just try and appeal to your readers. And I think that's something that you kind of feel like this is how I feel. You're trying to convince everybody to read your book. Everybody that might come along. Like, oh, even if you don't read young adult, read my book. It sounds like a great idea. Like, oh, you should be trying to convince people. But there are people out there who don't need convincing. And they're the people that you should be targeting. So it's always just mindset. It always comes back down to mindset. It's being prepared and having the right mindset. So yeah, I've got like my 3 pillars of posts, my social media stuff. And even though I haven't written this on my branding thing, which I really will, it also ties in with like the emails I want to send out to people, like the things that I want to talk about in emails, because that's another thing that I think a lot of authors don't know what their emails should be about. And I think once you've figured out your target audience and your like pillars of content, it really helps you figure out your email subjects. So I've got like a huge list of things that I want to send emails about. So I'm feeling really like I am like really like starting to feel comfortable in what my brand is, which has like this week I just like doing this document, I am starting to feel like it's helping and I'm not just writing in things that I already know. Like I have written in things that I didn't really think about before, looking into like what my target audience's other interests are to try and like take that into consideration. Yeah, I just feel like I'm winning at some point. I do feel like it's coming together. The plan's coming together. And I have a feeling that you have done completely different things to me this week. So
Yes.
I've got the very visual stuff. So you tell me what you've done.
So I sort of haven't done what we said we'd do, right? But I've done what I needed to do from kind of this area. So I was saying last week I was kind of still not feeling convinced that I had got in my mind the right idea for what this like brand guideline, the Matilda Swift Manifesto, should be. And I was like, I feel like it's something bigger than I'm conceptualizing, and I couldn't get the concept down. And so what I did, really took the idea of like looking at author brands really literally, and kind of looking at what we're planning to do next week, which is about like how you are on social media website and your consistency online. And actually I looked forward to that. And I looked at some people that I look at quite often. So some, not necessarily comp authors, but authors that I think have got a really, really good readership, like a very loyal fan base. And looking at them, and I often look at them like, I think it's really useful to have people that you come back to a lot, just to get really familiar and notice new things every time you come back. And I was really looking at them and trying to figure out what is their sense of branding. Because I think in my head, I was still really struggling to think of like branding as like a really businessy concept. Like I'm wearing right now a hoodie with a logo on. And I think when I think of branding, I do often think of like the visual side of it, and that wasn't really helping me, because to me, that's not how I think about my books, and that's not how I really connect books to readers. So I kept going round and round, like looking at these authors and trying to figure out like what it was that I was wanting to understand for them. And when I was trying to write notes on each of them, I realized that actually what I'm finding interesting at the moment about branding, and what I want to kind of pin down about myself, is how your brand makes an emotional promise about your books. Yeah, and that is what I think I want to take as my like top layer of the branding pyramid. And that is also a thing that I think I don't know about myself, and I'm not doing consciously. So the people I looked at 4 people/entities, so 3 people and 1 publisher. And I'm just going to read out who I looked at first, and they're all fairly well known, but they all have some sort of self-pub connection. So in different ways, or they're very self-pub adjacent. So I think there are people that, even if you're not reading this genre, you should know of them, and if you don't, you should go look into them. So first person was Ellie Alexander.
Let me get my phone out.
Okay.
Yeah, like I'm just like,
so yeah,
let me make sure.
Yeah. I mean, they'll be in the show notes, so I will list these in the show notes. So first person's Ellie Alexander. She is a traditionally published cozy author. She, I think I've mentioned her before, because she has really good branding. She markets like a self-pub author. Like, you would not guess she wasn't self-published, the amount of marketing she does, which it's interesting that she does so much marketing for books that are not self-published, that she's putting in so much work for a trad publisher. In a way that I don't think anybody else is. She does have a book that's self-published, and she also now has a writing coaching service, and I can imagine she will self-publish more in future, because she's so good at the marketing. Next person's Lucy Score.
It's very good.
Yeah, very good, very, very good on socials. Like, absolutely engaging in the way that I would like to be. Next person's Lucy Score, who started out as a self-published romance writer. She had some small press thing with like another indie author collective. She's dabbled in different ways of publishing, but big self-published author, romance writer, and she has a trad pub print-only deal, which is the same for LJ Ross, who is a sort of police procedural writer, very English location-specific crime books, incredibly chunky books. Again, big self-published author who has a print-only trad published deal. And then the other people I looked into were Joffy Books, who I mentioned last week, who are a digital-first crime imprint. They've expanded; they're doing romance as well, and I think I saw they're just expanding into fantasy. But digital-first UK company, very savvy. So all these people I looked into, I kept flicking between different things. So looking at like their websites, at their newsletters, at their social media, at different social media platforms, and trying to figure out, because I know them all quite well. Like I know their books quite well. I know their social quite well. Like I was trying to figure out why they were doing the branding things they were doing. And obviously some of it is intuitive for them, right? They've done the things that feel right to them, and that has made a connection to readers, and they do more of that. I want to do it slightly more consciously. And they all have a branding presence that is very aligned with the feeling you get from their books. So I'll just kind of talk through what I looked at with them, and I think it is worthwhile people looking them up online. So the main platforms I looked at, people's websites, their Instagram and their TikTok, and then newsletter if I'm signed up for it. So Ellie Alexander, she is the brand. She is like sunshine on legs. She is just so nice and engaging and warm and welcoming, and her book's the same way. She writes about female main character sleuths who are all, bright, making the world more interesting and exciting and adventurous, and you feel that way when you watch her videos. She is very welcoming, and she is taking you on a journey. So whenever she takes people on tours around her town through her videos. She runs a test kitchen in her house. Again, she makes videos about this. She has quite a lot of authority, and she's very detail oriented. It's the same in her books. Like her books are very detailed. They feel like you are being led through something that is calming, comforting, but also intriguing and exciting. So the feel that she has in her branding really reflects the feeling that her books give you when you read them. And she's very likable, but not, but authentically so. It doesn't feel like she's pandering. So she's got a bit of an edge. Like she writes books set in a brewery, in a brewery, which is unusual for a cozy. People don't tend to drink at cozies, so she's really kind of able to own her own space. So that was really interesting. And then I looked at Lucy Score, who is a romance writer, and her tagline is writing romance so steamy her family can't look her in the eye. Which is a good tagline, but if you've ever read a Lucy Score, I would say if you've read Lucy Score and you've read other romance books, that is not the tagline you would give her. She writes incredibly fun, sassy, rom-com-y type books. And there are spicy scenes, but they're not spicy books. At least the ones that I've read. I'm sure there are spicier
not
ones.
So spicy. Yeah, not so spicy that she's had to use a pen name. Or she's not hiding her face. Yeah.
She's not hiding her face, and in fact, her brother works for her. So it's like a tongue-in-cheek tagline. And I think she is a spicy writer for vanilla readers. Not to judge anybody, but I think she is really, really in a specific space. She doesn't hide her face. She doesn't hide her real name. She, in fact, posts on her social media in a very candid way. Much more than you would imagine for somebody who is absolutely, selling millions, making millions from her writing, and is a very good businesswoman. And she does a lot of things that make her seem quite wholesome. Her husband is called Mr. Lucy, and he's in a lot of her videos, and he works with her. He's mentioned in her newsletters. He's very, very sweet. He's an absolutely lovely husband. He's a book boyfriend husband. So I think you see her life, and you get the feeling that her heroines have. Is she's a little bit spicy, a bit sassy, but she has the nice husband, and she has the brother she works with, and she has a really lovely house that she shows, and she goes and gets excited at book tours, and all of her TikToks are handheld videos that she has made of herself, somewhat edited, but they're not produced. They feel very authentic. I get a kind of
like a Carrie Bradshaw-ish kind of vibe from her.
Yeah. Which I think is really in line with her book. So I think she creates a sense of which she's writing safe, spicy books, which is a really big audience. Like a lot of people want that. I think that's a great sort of book, really enjoyable, and you know exactly what you're getting when you engage with her. Her website is very interesting actually. Her website looks incredibly professional, like much less approachable than you get from other parts of her brand. And I don't know if that's maybe because if you're coming to someone's website, you're less likely to be trying to engage on a personal level. You're more likely to just be like a publication researching somebody, or a some sort of journalist perhaps researching someone, or someone who has just heard the name and wants to Google, like you're a bookseller. She's in bookshops, so it's quite a professional front on there. It's got a picture of her, full body, warm and welcoming, but very professional. So really interesting to see that. But all her socials really give you the feeling of like, this is not going to be too spicy, but it is going to be fun. And her book covers are in that flower trend, of sort of exaggerated cuteness that suggests, oh, there's something a bit naughty inside. But it's not Manchester.
Definitely from the covers. Yeah.
So you know what you're getting from that. And then the other author I looked at was called L.J. Ross, who conspicuously doesn't use a woman's name as a police procedural writer, which I think is a really common branding technique for people who write police procedurals. Hers are very location based. Her name is huge on the covers. You'll have seen an L.J. Ross book because her name is half the cover. She has a really beautiful location based picture. She is also a very good businesswoman. And I think what's interesting about her is she is not really the brand. Most of her posts are about author success and success for her books. She doesn't have a TikTok, or she does, but she doesn't use it. On Instagram, it is very more like a publisher's page than an author page, because readers are police procedurals, so they're wanting that like authority, that sense of sort of upright confidence. And that's what you get from her socials. Her website is fantastic. It's really engaging. It's got some great features on there, but it looks very slick, in a good way, in a way that makes you think, yes, I will trust her to write a procedural that will go through all the motions, like hit all the beats that I love. It will cover all the procedure accurately, and I will feel happily resolved at the end. She's got some family things on her socials, which sort of give that sense of like it's a real person, but not as much as I think many self-published authors do. And then the last people I looked at was Joffrey Books. So they were interesting. Obviously, they've got a social media team. They are a small but powerful and up and coming company. They have different feels on different social media platforms. So their TikTok is it's a bit like if you're on Threads right now and you're reading over like the social media managers' unhinged posts about like nobody's looking at what we're doing here. It's got kind of that vibe. It's run by just like like different, very media savvy young women usually, who are posting like trending sounds, kind of funny, currently a lot of Taylor Swift based videos, and there's sort of a feeling of it being a bit of a secret, a bit of like a joke around secrets. But then if you look on their Instagram, it's some of that, but also much more professional book publisher. Like, here are promotions of our serious authors. And their website looks more professional. So they've done a really good job. They are really constantly on trend. So they kind of want to create that vibe of like being on trend, but also a lot of their book catalogue comes from older authors who had extensive catalogues that were being ignored by traditional publishers, that were just like not really being promoted enough. And they've bought those up and promoted them like crazy and made huge amounts of money from, 20, 30 book catalogues of authors who are quite old. So they have a really interesting mix, which I think covers their audience well. Like, their audience is people who want those books by older authors. They might even be older readers themselves, but also they're definitely, Joffrey Books doing a good job of welcoming in like the newer, younger mystery readers that are big in the genre right now. So I looked at all those to really think about, and I don't have an answer to this, to really think about feeling, and I don't know what my feeling is. And I think it's really hard to be dispassionate and about that, and like consider what your own brand feeling is and articulate and present that.
I think that's such a great way to come at this, because I feel the same. Like, it's so difficult to, I mean, it's because you're so deep in your own stuff, you can't see it from an outside perspective, so you don't know what the emotion, like I've read that a lot about, like, figuring out what your readers' values are, and like and projecting those values in your brand. Like, that's like the emotion-based stuff is the hardest part, and you want to be sincere and authentic, but how do you figure out what emotion? It's that's a very like head-scratching thing.
Yeah, I think part of it is reviews are helpful. That is a time when I would say, if you can read your reviews. I recently, so I do read my reviews, because I also think I actually quite like bad reviews, because bad reviews are usually someone disliking the thing that that other people like about your book, so it's fine. Also, you don't have to be for everybody, and also I think it is useful to know if a book didn't hit. It's good to know why. I don't take it personally. Somebody's asked me today, like, oh, what's your favorite plot that you've written? I was like, well, I can't remember them. How would I know that? I absolutely, once I've written a book, it's gone. I don't remember book plots in general, but I particularly don't remember mine. I can at a push remember things about them, but I often don't know how they end. So I do read reviews because I think I can comfortably feel dispassionate about them. And I do think it is worth doing, and I think it's worth pulling out the common words, which I have done, but I think I have not done with enough to focus on feeling. And I really want to do. And what I worry about is, like, what's the word? Where you're biased to see what you want to see. There's a word for this, but I can't remember what it is. But yes, I do worry that I will go through reviews and pick out, like, oh, I think I'm very funny. So I think I will just well, it's not something you should think about yourself, but I do think I'm very funny. I think I have a very funny brother, and I think we're very funny together. So I think I really value that in myself. It's like one of my favorite things with my friends is to laugh and joke. And I think I consciously I try to be very funny in my writing, because I love laughing at a book, and I especially love, like, that about cozy mystery. I like sassy dialogue, so I do try and do that.
I love sassy dialogue.
Yeah. But
that's one of my things. I always say that about my stuff.
Yeah, but I think there is a real, like, stigma to saying I'm very funny, because, like,
oh no, no. I say to everyone, I'm the funniest person you'll ever meet. I'm not shy about it. I'm a middle child. Yeah. I have grown up to be the funny person, and, like, I tell all my friends, you'll never be as funny as I.
I think that as well. I think people wish they were as funny as me.
Yeah. We're two of the funniest people anybody will ever listen to.
Oh my god, that's why this podcast is such a laugh a minute. That's why we should leave this, have a side gig as, like, a comedy podcast. I mean, it keeps this podcast from being too serious. But so I do think I am biased towards finding reviews that say, oh, it's so funny, because that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, but if that helps you to lean into that, then you can, like, that means that you are, like, you're seeing something you want to see, but at the same time, like, that's not a bad thing sometimes.
I tell you what, actually, definitely,
I'll lean into it.
Yeah, definitely with this new series, I have been consciously trying to push things a bit further, and I think like, what's the next joke? Like, what's the further funnier idea? Like, what would add to this, rather than sticking with your first ideas, or rather than necessarily spending too much time thinking about, or, like, limiting yourself by worrying about the, like, oh, that's silly. So I literally just wrote a scene where someone's, like, life alert alarm goes off under the floorboards, and I was like, I need a siren. I end the chapter saying there's a siren. I was like, what if it's someone life alert under the floorboards because there's tunnels under the street and someone has never left the street and they just walk through these tunnels as their exercise. And I was like, yes, I'm going to yes and myself into a funnier book.
Yes and into it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Why not?
Yes. So I do think I'm consciously trying to up the funny in them because I think it's a skill in my tool belt. I don't have all the skills. That is a skill that I have and I want to make more of it. So maybe that is a thing. Maybe I need to really say like, my brand is funny.
Yeah, I think that's a really good conclusion to come to. If you already know that your genre and your branding is like quintessentially British, but quintessentially British comedy or humorous.
But it's more like I want
cozy.
I want the feeling. So I don't necessarily want to say like, oh, I am the funny cozy writer, but I want you to know like, if you look at my socials, you should know this will be a funny book.
Yeah, there's going to be some humor in here. Yeah, I think that's like quintessentially tongue in cheek. Like I think that British humor is very tongue in cheek, and sometimes it's kind of very wry. And so, I mean, everyone knows British humor is very sarcastic. So I think that there are so many things that you can pull from like what's expected from a British writer, particularly if a lot of your audience are Americans. They're probably looking for that, or that they'd be excited to see that, because Americans love to talk about how funny British people are and how different our humor is.
We are so funny.
What's that? I mean, two of the funniest British people right now, living in our time.
Which, gosh, and we found each other. Yeah,
I know. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, the universe. I mean, it's amazing. But yes, I think that is right. I think what I need to do is do more about thinking of what my pillars are, but I want my pillars to be feeling based. Yes, I also think we should start a podcast called like Pillars to Post, because I almost cracked up thinking about that earlier, of like turning your pillars into social media posts. This joke needs more workshopping, but
oh yes, that could be. Yeah. Oh, we could turn that into a side hustle. We can sell planners that help people.
Yes, pillars to posts. Oh my goodness. I think we're genius. We're funny and smart.
Trademarked. Copyright. Nobody take it. Nobody steal that idea.
But I think we did that with this podcast, right? With this podcast, I think we came on really having a very clear feeling straight away of like, the feeling is we're just giving it a go. And like, we're really happy to admit like we're making mistakes and we're trying things and we are just talking around our problems. We're not expecting to be polished. And I think all of our like socials reflect that. You know, the parts that we put out are about like, here's some things we've been thinking about. They're not overly polished. They show us as authentic people. I can hear you typing excited notes. People can hear that. It's like,
what is my feeling?
Yes, what is my feeling? Yes, because I think previously when thinking about branding, it has felt really artificial to try to be like, what's my font? What's my socials? Because like, I felt like I was plucking it out of the air. And this sounds so stupid. Now I say it, it's like I hadn't thought about like what feeling I was trying to convey, because that's all, at least to me, like that's all reading is. I teach literature and I spend every literature lesson saying like, what's the effect on the reader? And when I say effect, I mean, what feeling do they have?
Yes.
I say this so often and I'm so annoyed at myself that I haven't asked myself this question. What effect am I trying to have on the reader? And then how can I convey that through everything I do?
I guess maybe like a good thing for us to do is to look back at our own books, and try and come up with 3 feelings per book, or or just like maybe even one feeling per book. Like,
I think I might go for like,
what do I think?
Overall feeling.
Yeah, like what was the overall feeling, and then if you can because like I don't even I can't think off the top of my head what mine would be, but I think that if I could do that, if I could look up like my book, hold my book in my hands and think like, what was this supposed to convey? Which I haven't thought, because like writing for I think both of us is, we're doing it so long, you know the process and you know the story. And personally for me, I assume that the feeling just comes out in that, but I don't try and like shoehorn extra feels into my book. I just like my characters just do that work for me. But I'm like interested to hold my book in my hands and say like, what did you make me feel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm going to
I
set
think
myself a
it's
little
working to do
side
that for like
quest.
your entire writing style. Because like I was saying that I came to write after a few months absence and felt like, oh, this is a Matilda Swift book. Yeah, this reads exactly like I normally write. I have not magically become a different writer. So what is that? What is a Matilda Swift book? I have a really good friend who we swap writing for critiques, and she should be a developmental editor because she is so phenomenal. Rachel, I have told you this many times. But she can always articulate back what you meant and maybe why you didn't quite achieve it. So she can say, oh, I can see you meant the scene to do this, but here's where it's not working for me. And she's incredibly insightful for that. But she's someone who gave me like my best advice for writing cozies. And it's because I was saying I often rewrite the beginning of books, and it is because the book isn't charming. And that is her word, and that's a word I always think of when I think of cozies. Because cozies, the word cozy mystery, it's a charming mystery. It should make you feel charmed. You should feel warm and entranced and amused, and you should feel a little bit in love with it. Cozy, I think, is not quite the right word. Cozy feels too mushy.
I feel like the word cozy has definitely changed its meaning over time. I think these days people associate cozy with like staying in and being comfortable, and I don't think cozy mysteries are I don't think they're comfortable places to be. They are charming places to be. Yeah, I think that's a really good shout.
So yeah, maybe charming is also one of my feeling words, because I think that conveys so much for me. It's like charming, funny, but there's something else there that I need to kind of capture. And I think maybe I'll find it more as I'm writing this book. Like, what am I trying to lean in towards? What am I trying to do more of? I mean, I really, really like eccentricity, and that is such an English thing. And I think that those are the characters that I love the most, are the ones who are just out there and like really doing their own thing. I love writing those characters, and it always amuses me to write those characters. And my favorite bit to do is just like a 2-line description of someone you might never see again, but I will think about it for ages. I'll really throw a lot into like, what's the exact way to describe this person that you know 100% who they are, and they will stay with you even if you never see them again. And I try and often like bring those characters back in the background because I adore them. So maybe eccentricity, but then how would I convey that in my branding? If those are my words, like charm, humor, and eccentricity, those are all so quintessentially British. I'm writing those down,
and
I
feel like I know you should write these down. And like I know we don't really want to go on too much about this because we're gonna like bore people with how long this will end up being. But
quite a long one, yes.
I feel like
it's not me though.
I feel like
good.
I feel like your social media presence and just you in general, and like the house that you live in and everything is all of those things. I think you just need to show more of it. I think that's it. I think you need to show more of yourself.
Yeah. I'm really, really trying to at the moment. I think that is really like my 2024 focus. So I am online dating at the moment, and my main goal with it is just to be more comfortable with being authentic, because I think when I have dated in the past, I have really tried to present the quote unquote best version of myself. And actually what I want to present is like the person who's quite sarcastic and loves roller skating and doesn't want to eat 3 sensible meals a day.
Yeah, you want to show the weirdest parts of yourself and see who that attracts.
Yeah.
Men do it.
I mean, I think I've been worried that like I don't want to know who that is with dating, but maybe I do. Yeah, I think so. So I've decided like every time I see somebody, and like it might be for one date, it might be for more, and it doesn't go any further. Like once something's reached an end, I'm going to add something to my profile that is more eccentric. That is more me.
Ask the person that you were dating, what words did you describe?
I don't think
what feelings did you have?
Yes, what feelings you have? Just awe, amazement, astound. Actually, more positive words.
Give me a feeling word. I'm going to add it.
Yeah, but I think maybe that is really what I'm focused on this year is authenticity. And I have been thinking about that in my personal life a lot. but I need to think about it in my author life as well. 100%.
Yeah.
This episode has felt like such a revelation for me. It's been like
It
personal
has been a
therapy.
revelation.
I really feel like it's been a long one for everyone else. Hopefully they've enjoyed coming on this journey with me. But I feel like I have cracked branding as a concept, as like for my writer self and my regular human self.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
We're getting
so
there,
excited.
one step at a time.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap this up because we could. I feel like we could talk about it forever. So let's take this.
Yeah.
Let's take this off the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So for next week's topic, we're going to continue with our series on rebranding and relaunching. And next week, we'll be talking about how consistent we can be with our branding. So branding consistency. What does branding consistency mean to you at this moment in time?
So I think when we originally thought of this topic, I'd written in brackets in my notes that we want to talk about kind of how to make your social media and your website consistent. But I do now follow my epiphany thing that is to do with not necessarily having to be the same, but like making sure you're very feeling focused so that if you're trying to target people in one place, what feeling you're trying to convey to that? And are you trying to reach a slightly different audience to in another location? And how does it tie into your overall like focus on feelings? Yeah, and I had planned to do some like research into comp authors next week, but then I brought it forward because I really couldn't. I was getting stuck this week on like what I was trying to understand. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do for next week in terms of like physically looking at things. Maybe I might look at my own work and my own website and socials and think like, how do I want to put this into play? What about you? What thoughts have you got in this area?
Similarly with socials, it's like how to be consistent on socials, which I have kind of been doing quite well on recently. I've had a bit of a fun time on TikTok over the last week or so, where I finally finally like I was stuck in the 200 views category for ages, and I finally broken to like 700, 800 views. So I'm tipping in the right direction, and that is from consistently posting. One of the big things that I have struggled with over the last probably 12 months, and I know that we've spoken about this before, like at the start of this whole journey, was I kind of got sucked into the weird part of social media where, as an author, I was talking to other authors.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to get sucked into because you're trying to find like your community, but then you end up, the algorithm then starts putting you into that camp. So I had to try and train my algorithm to put me into the readers camp. That's kind of the consistency that I need to work on, is remembering who I'm talking to, remembering like who I'm targeting with my posts and all of that fun stuff. So that's kind of going to be where I'm coming at for this one.
Yeah, that is definitely interesting. And like I think about that with like posting things about this podcast. I'm always a bit conflicted, like how much I want to post it on my own social media, and like my author branded social media, because it's not the same audience. I think it might be worth you looking into Ellie Alexander, who has added a coaching strand. Her website's very good. It instantly separates you off into which strand you are, whether you're a reader or writer. But her socials are really mixed. And I don't know if that is just because a lot of cozy authors are cozy readers. You know, a lot of people who are into cozies like writing.
I do find that.
Yeah, maybe less worry for her of overlapping. But also she had spent a very long time building up an incredibly strong reader based social profile. So what I think maybe she might have felt less like it was a danger adding writers into that. It wasn't going to lose her all the reader audience. But yeah, it is definitely, I think, useful to think about and how to make sure that you're focused on different on the right audience.
Yeah, it's definitely like a big hurdle that I've been trying to jump over recently. I'm doing okay with it, but yeah, definitely need to figure that out. So I'll look into Ellie Alexander. I've been on her. I've actually got a tab open with her website on, and I've been looking at it over the last few weeks. So I just need to sit down and focus.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go and write copious notes about my epiphany now, and pat myself on the back for being a hilarious genius some more.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And think about what my how am I going to present my feelings? I think it's, again, and I don't want to go on too long, but I think it is, again, like that English thing of like really being hesitant to own something. So it's like, if I said my feeling words are like charm, human eccentricity, how do I own that without feeling embarrassed? Like, yeah,
There's
I need
no
to
room
figure
for
that out.
embarrassment in this.
Okay.
I know this is I don't want to continue this too long, but at the wedding that I went to the other day, I can't tell you the amount of people who stopped me and said, I've been seeing you all on Instagram, like you're doing so well, your posts are so good. And I was just like, I didn't think anybody was, what? Like, I didn't think anybody saw my stuff. Please don't say you've seen me online. But that's the thing. Like, instantly I kind of felt like I wanted to recoil, but there's no room for that. We've got to own it. We've got to own our own geniuses.
Yeah, maybe that's a thing to work on for next week as well. It's like how to make sure that you're not shying away from your branding, because
yes,
I think we can have all the ideas in the world and then not enact it because we're a little bit shy of people's of like tall poppy syndrome. And I dislike that about being English. I would like to be the tallest poppy in the field, and I will not get mown down.
That sounds like fighting talk.
Yeah, fighting talk. We're on it. We will come next week with the rest of our details of our fight. We will come with our war plans.
Yes. Well,
fantastic.
Thank you very much for this talk, and thank you everyone for listening. And if I get this up online at some point, thank you for watching as well. And we shall see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye. You've been listening to Pen to Paycheck Authors.
Stay tuned for our next episode, and don't forget to subscribe to learn how to write your way to financial success.